Hey guys, my name is Ben and welcome to episode 1 of our Bukkit Plugin tutorials, new and improved for 2015 1.8 plus. So, if you've been on the channel before, you see that about 3 years ago I had a tutorial for Bukkit Plugins, which now is extremely outdated and it taught a lot about conventions and stuff like that. So you may either be visiting here for the first time or you may be a returning subscriber. So I'm going to start a new series from scratch teaching Bukkit or Spigot or whatever you want to call it now, and how to make a plugin for a online Minecraft server like you see on servers such as Hypixel, Mineplex, that kind of thing. So the additions to server online play, which can be done through the code. So essentially, if you don't know what we're going to be doing, Bukkit plugins are created through a programming language called Java, which is also the programming language that Minecraft was created in. And what I expect you to know before we go into these tutorials is a basic understanding of Java and the Java language. I'm expecting you to have things like Eclipse or NetBeans or IntelliJ installed, an integrated development environment in which you can work on. I'm expecting you to have the JDK installed and obviously have Java all set up. If you don't have all this set up, then I'd suggest going to see a tutorial or watch a tutorial by someone like the new Boston or by my Bringback, just to get you all set up with the basics of Java, have that all installed. I'm not expecting you to know any of like the specific syntax or anything like that for how to write in Java, but what would be good is a solid understanding of that. However, it's not necessary to go through these tutorials, as I'm just going to be teaching the Bukkit API, and along the way I'm going to be explaining everything quite in depth and getting all that done. So first of all, for this first tutorial, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing Craft Bukkit. We're going to be setting up a little server, and we're going to just set up our first little project. So what you want to do first of all is come to this website here, getspigot.org, which is now where Craft Bukkit is stored. So first of all, we're just going to download Craft Bukkit. We're going to keep this file, and on my desktop I've set up a little folder called server here, and this is where I'm going to be setting up my server. So on here I'm just going to take my Craft Bukkit server file and I'm going to drag it into Craft Bukkit server. Drag it into the server folder. I'm just going to rename this Bukkit. So this is our Bukkit jar. This is where everything's going to run from. Now we have to do something. We have to create a start file to start our server, which is something I can never remember. So I always go to Google and I type in Minecraft start.bat. We come to this Gamepedia page here, and we scroll down a bit, and we scroll down and we get this this bat file example. So if we just copy this middle line here, and we come back here, and we're just going to create a new text document quickly. We should call it start. There's a lot of tutorials online about how to create servers and stuff, so you might have done this, you might just have to skip this step. And instead of having the same Minecraft server here, we're going to say bukkit.jar. We're going to save that. We're going to go to save as actually, and we're going to change the type to all types, and at the end we're going to type .bat. So that's a batch file, it's a Windows batch file. We can then delete the text file like that, and double click the start file. This is going to open up, and like always when you start a server, it's going to ask us to accept the EULA or whatever. So because we now have this EULA file, we're going to have to change this to say that we agree to the EULA, which obviously we've all read hundreds of times. And then we're just going to start up the server again. So we're just going to quickly set up our server like so. So meanwhile, if you haven't got an IDE installed, you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Eclipse, all you have to do is go to Eclipse, Google it, and then go to whatever the first page is, head over to download here, and download the latest version of the Eclipse IDE for Java developers, the second one down here, which I'm not sure what version we're on now. I'm using some version. Anyway, it doesn't matter which version it is. You download it for whichever platform you're for and whichever operating system you're running on. This allows us to actually write our code into a thing, and it will spit back errors at us while we're writing it. So instead of using something such as Notepad, which wouldn't show us errors, and it also allows us to autocorrect things easier, it makes it an easier way to develop Java. So that's a train outside, if you can hear that. So anyway, now we have our server all prepared and set up. A few random errors from the servers, but that's okay because that's not of our plugin. And so we have that all set up. We can now go into our Eclipse. So when we first load up Eclipse, we load it up, and it's going to give us a screen similar to this, or it might give you a picture of where it tells you to go to the workbench. So this is our workspace here. You're going to have to set up a working space environment. Mine is just in my Bukkit tutorials folder on my C drive. So what we first have to do is we're going to go to File, New, Java Project, because we're making a Java project for a server which runs on Java, and our Bukkit plugin is going to also be made in Java. So our project name, I'm just going to set this as, this is setting up. So this is episode 1, setting up. Obviously, you don't have to name them as I'm naming them. I'm just naming them so they're organized in an organized fashion. So when we program in Java, we use our JRE system library, and I'm using Java 1.8, which is the latest version of Java, or JDK that we've installed, which you should have done at the start of the tutorial if you went and you watched back through things like, you know, the New Boston tutorials on basic Java. And what this means is we get access to the basic methods and class files and Java files that are integrated with our Java SE 1.8, which allows us to develop quickly, easily, and it's how Java kind of runs. What we also want to do is we want to have access to the Bukkit methods, which allow us to manipulate the in-game Bukkit settings. So the way we do this is we right-click on our project name, we go to Build Path, Configure Build Path, go into Libraries, Add External Jars, and where we have installed our Bukkit file or executable jar file, which is in our server folder, we just double-click on that, hit OK, and you'll now see that we have a folder called Reference Libraries. Now in here we have all of this stuff. And if we scroll down far enough, you'll see that we have stuff like org.bukkit, and in here we have things like a chatcolor.class. These are all the kind of things that we're going to be using when we make our Bukkit plugins to allow us to, I guess, integrate with the Bukkit API, which is what we're going to be learning how to do. We're going to be learning how to use the Bukkit API alongside Java to create our own Bukkit plugins. So you'll see we have our project, a source folder, our reference libraries here, which is our Bukkit, and our GRE system library, which is basic Java. So inside of our source file, this is where all of our data goes. And in here, we're going to create a Java package. A Java package is a way of storing data and class files and Java files inside our source file. So essentially what you want this to be is you want it to be unique to you, unique to your own persons, so that if you're running multiple plugins on a server and that the plugin loader is trying to look for your plugin and you have two folder names that are the same, two package names, it's going to be looking at two places that are exactly the same. So the way of doing this is, a good way of doing it is typing, and a conventional way of doing this, a good Java convention is package names are generally all in lowercase. So you type your website name backwards. Seeing as I don't have a website name, I'm just going to put com, and then I'm going to put my YouTube name, so TheBCBroz. And then after the dot, we're going to put the name of the project that we're going to be working on. So we're going to be working on a tutorial. So I guess I'm just going to put tutorial like that, and then we finish. And you'll see now we have this package here. Something I like to do when organizing my packets is I like to come to this drop-down view menu button here, go to package presentation, and set it to the second one down, hierarchical, like that, instead of being flat. What this means is that when we create new packets inside of packets, they won't all stack up like as one. So if we go into our reference libraries now, you'll see that everything looks a lot neater. We go into org, and then we can go into Bukkit, and then everything comes out nice and, you know, one after the other. So I'm now going to make a class file inside of this package. A class file is where we write all of our code and all of the data for the plugin goes. So the name of this is going to be tutorial. You don't need to change any of this other stuff, just the name of your class file. Click finish, and you'll see we have a nice class file. Eclipse has already set us up the basic everything that needs to be in here. So at the top we have a package declaration. This declares what package we're in. We're in com.thebcbroz.tutorial, which is shown up here as well. So we can see we're in that package. And now it says public class tutorial. So it's a public class. Every other class that we make is going to have access to this class. This class is not private. If it's private, if I would change this here to private, then you'll see that this comes underlined red. And in fact, we don't even need the word private here. This means that if we had any other classes, they would not be able to access this file this Java file, and it would only be able to be accessed internally from the own class file. Class means it's a class file. We have other types of files which we'll be getting into later, such as interface, enumeration, annotations. They'll be coming to in later tutorials. However, we're not going to get into them now. You can have a look online if you really want, or if you're more experienced with Java, you can start to use them sooner. But for the sake of these tutorials, we're not going to be getting into them yet. So, now we have this class tutorial. What do we do with this class tutorial? First of all, we want to declare that this class is part of a Bukkit plugin. So to do that, we're going to say extends Java plugin. Remember that capitalization in Java is very important. So after putting extends Java plugin, what this means is that this tutorial is a member of the Java plugin class, which is in our reference libraries here over bukkit.jar. So, however, this class doesn't know what Java plugin is yet. So if we hover over Java plugin, you'll see there's a red line. We're going to import Java plugin from org.plugin.java plugin, which you'll also see if we go into reference libraries, which you don't have to do. If we go to org.bukkit, and then we go into plugin, wherever plugin is. Can't even find it. I'm blind. Plugin, Java, and then Java plugin, you'll see Java plugin is a class file within the reference libraries. Now what this shows is that when the plugin loader is looking for plugins, it's going to look for this file and it's going to see, is this plugin, is this class file a Java plugin? Yes, it is. This is the main file for our entire plugin. Every other class file that we have within our plugin will not need to extend Java plugin. Only your main file for your for your Bukkit plugin has to extend Java plugin because it runs certain methods which run on startup, which we'll get into now. So, the first method that is called when the server starts up is called onEnable. So what we're going to type here is going to type public. So what we're doing here is we're creating a method. A method can be run in lots of different ways throughout Java. It's a way of organizing code essentially. So we're going to public void. The void is the return parameter. So this tells us what this method is going to return. Will it return a number, a set of words, or will it return nothing? Will this method actually return nothing? This method in itself is going to return nothing, so it's going to return void. And then we name the method, and it's going to be named onEnable with a capitalized E. And then we put 2 brackets after that, we put a curly brace, we hit enter, and it should create the ending curly brace for us. So you'll see at the side here, it says it overrides org.bukkit.plugin.java.plugin.onEnable. Inside Java plugin, there's a method called onEnable. This method gets called at startup for every plugin in your server. So when you run the server, this onEnable method is ran, and this is the birthplace of your entire plugin. Everything from here will spread out as it is. This is where it all begins. So all you need to know for now, I guess, and if you're not particularly experienced with Java, is that when your plugin loads up, this onEnable method is going to be ran. So we have something called a plugin description file within Java. You have your server.properties and all of this kind of stuff, and we can access all of the information about the server and kind of user input from our plugin description file, which we're going to be creating in a minute. So if we type plugin description file, we're creating an object here, so we can import plugin description file after we do this, I guess. Plugin description file, and then we name our object as a little kind of placeholder. If you think about in algebra, when you have a number x equals 5, we don't refer to 5 each time. We refer to x, and we can use x, and it's a lot shorter way. So you have a very large number, or if we have a function of x, where function of x equals x plus 12 or whatever, we just define that as one thing. It's function of x. So this is the same kind of idea with an object. We're creating an object which we can then just refer to over and over again instead of having to redefine the object continually. So, plugin description file, we're going to rename this PDF file, plugin description file, and then it's just a file. This is just another convention within Bukkit, and this equals, okay, sorry about that. We're back. Right, so plugin description file, PDF file, and then we're going to set this equal to, we're going to get, and then if we hit Control and space at the same time, we get a list of lots of methods that we can use. Now notice these methods return things. So get description here, if we double click that, and then we hit a semicolon at the end of each line we do, get description returns plugin description file, which is what we have here. Our method here returns void. So the method that they have used here is a public plugin description file get description. So that is a way of trying to understand how methods work. So we're calling a method here that is inside the Java plugin class file or Java file, which gets the description file for our plugin. Now we're going to create a logger, which is going to log information out to our server. So if we type logger equals, and then we're going to import logger. So if we import logger, we hover over logger and we import logger from java.util.logging, and then we're going to type logger with a capital L dot get logger, and then the name of the logger that we're going to be using. We're just going to use it for Minecraft. So I'm going to explain what I've done here in a minute. So logger is the name of the class that we're creating. Logger here with the lowercase is just a placeholder for the name logger. So instead of typing logger.getLoggerMinecraft.log message, we're going to just make a quicker method of just calling it quicker object of just calling it logger. So we're doing logger.getLogger. We're going to logger, the class file, and we're using the method getLogger, and then we're going to name our logger here Minecraft. Because what we're doing is using a string, we're putting it inside of these quotation marks here. A string is just a set of words or characters or numbers. It's just text essentially. And every time we use strings in Java, we have to put it inside of quotation marks. And you can tell that we required a string here, because if we were inside of here, you'll see there's a little red line, and it says add argument to match get logger string, and the string that we want to use is Minecraft, because we're going to name our logger Minecraft. So now we want to actually log some data out to our console. So how we do that is we type logger, so we're using our little object here, and we're saying dot log, but we don't want to just log, we want to log some information. So if we scroll down here, we see we've got all these methods that we can use after we type dot. Now we want to find the one that says info. So if we double click info here, you'll see it already adds the semicolon at the end of the line. Remember to always add semicolons at the end of your line. And we want to log a message. Now we want to log that our plugin's been enabled, but we don't know what the name of our plugin yet is, because that's defined in a plugin.yml file that we're going to create in a minute. So we're going to use our PDF file to grab that data. So if we type PDF file, or whatever you've named your file, and then dot, you'll see we have all of this data we can get about us, our plugin. So we're going to get the name of our plugin here, and then we're going to say has been enabled. However, we cannot just type this. Because we're writing a string, because we're infoing and we're writing out a string, getName returns a string. So that in itself is just going to print out the name. What if I want to add more text to the end of it? The way we do that in Java is we put a plus symbol, and then we add our quotation marks, which defines we want to write a string here. So we've got our name, plus, and then a space, and then we're going to say has been enabled. Maybe we also want to put what version it is. So let's add another string. What we're doing here is concatenating strings. That's the technical term, or we could just put sticking lines of words together. So maybe we want to say it's been enabled for whatever version it is. So if we hit a backspace, hit a space, and then after this quotation mark we put PDF file again, and then get version. So that also returns a string. So that's going to say PDF file name. So the name of our plugin has been enabled, and then it just says the version. But we want to say has been enabled, and there may be brackets, version, dot, and then the version, and then after this we'll concatenate another string, and then close off those parentheses, like so. If you ever want to quickly format your code, just hit Control, Shift, and F, and that will format it up. However, I don't like how it wraps around here, so I'm just going to undo that. So what it's going to say here is we're going to log to our server, our PDF file name has been enabled for whatever version. So now what we can do is we're going to drag this whole method here. We're going to hit enter a couple of times, and we're going to press paste. So we've copied and pasted. Control V, Control C, Control V. Now you see there's an error here because they both have the same name for methods. You can't have two methods that are named the same. So we want this method here to run when the server is disabled. So we're going to, when the plugin is disabled, sorry. So we're going to call this method on disable, which is quite self-explanatory. It runs when the plugin is disabled. So we still want to get our plugin description file. We still want to get our logger. And we want to log, instead of being it's been enabled, we want to say it's been disabled, like so. So this is actually all the code we're going to write for today. We're just going to run our server. We're going to run it on enable. We're going to send a message saying the plugin's been enabled, and then on disable, we're going to log an info saying the server's been disabled. One thing we have to do every time we make a plugin is make a plugin description file, which is our plugin.yml. And the way we do that is we click on our project, we right click, new file, we type plugin.yml, and in here we put data about our plugin. So first of all, we're going to want to copy our package that it's in. So that's at the top here, from here, so com.bcbroz tutorial. In our plugin.yml, we cannot use tabs, remember that is a rule. We're going to type main, paste, and then type the name of our main class file. So again, go back, copy the name of our class file, put a dot, and then tutorial. What this does is it means that when the plugin loader is looking for our plugin, it's going to look for our main file, which extends Java plugin. That is defined here, so it's going to go to com.thebcbroz.tutorial.tutorial, com.thebcbroz.tutorial.tutorial is found here, which extends Java plugin, and then it's going to run all of our stuff. We also need to define the version we're in, like so. So our version is going to be 1.0, and that's actually, I think that's all we really need apart from the name. So the name of our plugin is going to be tutorial plugin, like so. So now we have all this defined. We can actually add more things, but we'll get into those in later tutorials. These are all the necessary initial ones, and you can format this in any way you want. Remember, you cannot use tabs at all. This may have popped up inside of your IDE, or it may have popped up in something like some other program like plugin, or what is it, Notepad. If it does, then after you close it, right click on your plugin, hit refresh or hit F5, and then that's going to refresh everything inside your plugin. Now we're going to export our plugin to our server. So right click on your server, on your plugin, hit export. It's going to export it as a Java jar file. Make sure everything here on the right is selected. Go to browse, go to your server folder, go into plugins, and we're just going to name it tutorial plugin. Hit finish, load up Minecraft, and start up your server. So we don't actually need to load up Minecraft at all this tutorial. So if we're loading up our server here, you'll see it's going to load all the libraries, and what's happening here is it's going to set up our server, and we should see in a moment that our plugin is enabled. So here we are, tutorial plugin, it's enabling tutorial plugin version 1.0, and tutorial plugin has been enabled for version 1.0. So now if we stop the server, or if we reload the server in fact, you'll see that tutorial plugin has been disabled for version 1.0. So that is all we're going to be getting into for today. Next tutorial we're going to be actually looking at some in-game features, but I hope this is a solid understanding of how to set up your plugin, and we should be able to move and progress forwards onwards. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.